The High Council chamber hummed with a low, nervous energy. Ambassador Cathar Nar, a creature of plated scales and razor claws, slammed a fist onto his podium. This is illogical. The Lumins are a tertiary species. They possess no strategic resources. They command no significant fleet. Their planetary defenses are, charmingly rudimentary. Why would any power, much less a rising force like humanity, commit such vast resources to defend them from the Vorlag? His voice, usually a grating rumble, now held a tremor of genuine bewilderment. Across the vast holographic display, Ambassador Jarek Vance of Earth remained calm. His face was a picture of quiet resolve. He looked out at the assembled delegates from across the galaxy, each a distinct tableau of fur, chitin, or shimmering energy. The Cathar Nar was right in one sense. Lumina Prime, the Lumins' homeworld, was not important by galactic standards. It was a verdant world, rich in biodiversity, but poor in the minerals that fueled interstellar empires. The Lumins themselves were small, gentle beings, resembling feathered avians with wide, curious eyes. They were known for their intricate woven tapestries and melodious, multi-tonal music. They posed no threat. They offered no advantage. Yet, orbiting Lumina Prime right now was the full might of the United Nations Space Command's Third Fleet, a force so immense it blotted out the local suns. The sheer audacity of it, the colossal economic and military outlay, had sent shockwaves through every major power. Jarek Vance's gaze settled on Ambassador Xylo Thane of the Xylos Confederacy, a being of flowing iridescent light, whose form shifted like an oil slick on water. The Xylos were masters of logic, their decisions always cold, calculating. Xylo Thane projected an aura of profound confusion. Ambassador Vance, your commitment, while admirable in its scale, defies all known strategic parameters. What, precisely, is the tactical advantage you perceive in this alliance? Jarek Vance took a slow, deliberate breath. The air in the chamber, usually recycled and tasteless, now carried the faint metallic tang of fear and suspicion. He could feel the eyes of every species, every delegate, boring into him. He could almost hear their thoughts, a cacophony of questions. What are the humans really after? Is this a feint? A display of power? A hidden resource on Lumina Prime they have kept secret? He leaned slightly into his microphone. His voice was soft, clear, and utterly devoid of anything but calm conviction. Centuries ago, a human scout vessel, the UNSS Voyager, was disabled deep in uncharted space. Its life support systems were failing. Its power core was breached. Its crew, a single captain, was adrift, alone, and dying of thirst. A ripple went through the chamber. The Cathar Nar grunted, a sound of dismissive skepticism. Xylo Thane merely shimmered faster, a sign of heightened analytical processing. This captain, Elias Vance, my ancestor, managed to make a desperate, emergency landing on an uncharted world. A world you now call Lumina Prime. He was near death, dehydrated, injured. His communications were down. He was beyond rescue. Jarrett paused, letting the silence hang heavy. The faint, sweet smell of the synthetic floral air fresheners the Xylos preferred seemed out of place with the tension. He was found by a Lumin, a simple farmer, tending his crops. This Lumin did not know of our advanced technology. He did not care about interstellar politics or galactic trade routes. He saw a suffering creature. He offered water. He offered shelter. He offered healing herbs. He offered kindness. Jarek's voice gained a quiet strength. He saved my ancestor's life. He saved the first human to ever set foot on Lumina Prime. Cathar, Nar snorted. A single act of trivial kindness, centuries ago? You commit your entire third fleet for a cup of water? The words were laced with disbelief, almost ridicule. Jarek Vance met his gaze. A cup of water when you are dying of thirst is not trivial, Ambassador. It is everything. Humanity remembers such gestures. We do not forget our debts. This is not a strategic maneuver. This is not about resources. This is about honor. This is about gratitude. The Lumins offered us water when we were thirsty. We will offer them our shields when they are threatened. A profound, unnerving silence descended upon the chamber. The Xylos ambassador, Xylothane, stopped shimmering. Its form solidified into a still, pulsing sphere of light. This was a concept utterly alien to them. An entire civilization, committing untold resources, risking interstellar war, for a single, long-forgotten act of kindness. The very irrationality of it was terrifying. It meant humanity was unpredictable. It meant humanity fought not just for profit or power, but for something far deeper, something they called friends. The air carried the sweet scent of blooming sky flowers and the faint, earthy aroma of damp soil. Elder Phelan, his delicate feathered head tilted, watched the sky with a mixture of awe and growing apprehension. For weeks now, the vast angular shapes of human warships had dominated their heavens. They hung there, silent, immense, like mountains carved from polished obsidian. Their sheer size was incomprehensible to the Lumins, who built small, graceful skiffs for river travel and wind-powered gliders for short flights. Phelan's village, nestled beside a wide, slow-moving river, was usually a hive of peaceful activity. Lumins tended their terrace gardens, wove their intricate tapestries from shimmering plant fibers, or sang their haunting, multitonal songs that mimicked the wind in the trees. Now, a quiet unease had settled over them. They did not understand why these powerful sky giants had come. The human diplomats had spoken of an ancient bond, a debt. But the Lumins' memory was long but communal, a tapestry of shared experiences, not individual historical records. They remembered no specific human, no moment of grand aid. They offered kindness to all who passed through their lands, as was their way. They had always done so. A young Lumin, Feathersong, approached Phelan. Her eyes, wide and innocent, reflected the impossible scale of the ships above. Elder Phelan, why are they here? The star-speak beings say there is danger. They say Vorlag. Her voice was a soft, musical chime. Phelan gently stroked her head feathers. There is indeed danger, little one. The star-speak beings, the humans, have explained it as best they can. A great aggressive power, the Vorlag Empire, seeks to expand. They deem our world easy to conquer. He sighed, a soft rustle of air. But these humans, they say they remember a kindness shown long ago. A debt. And they have come to repay it. Feather. Song tilted her head. But what kindness could be so great that they would bring such power? We have so little to offer. Phelan looked up at the sky. He could not answer that fully, not yet. The human concept of debts was a strange thing. It felt like a heavy stone, when Lumins gave freely, without expectation of return. Yet, he sensed an earnestness in the human voices, a quiet, unshakable resolve that was strangely comforting despite the fear. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the UNSC Everest, the flagship of the Third Fleet, Fleet Commander Anya Sharma, stared at the star charts. Her expression was grim. The Everest was a leviathan, a mile and a half of hardened steel, energy shields, and enough firepower to crack a small moon. Around her, the bridge bustled with quiet efficiency. The soft hum of the ship's massive fusion engines vibrated subtly beneath her feet. The air smelled faintly of ozone and recycled oxygen. "Status of Vorlag advance?" she asked, her voice calm, even though her stomach churned with the scale of the impending engagement. Preliminary scans indicate 5 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, and a swarm of 25,000 assault craft. Their intent is clearly direct assault on Lumina Prime. Sharma nodded. The Vorlag were not subtle. They overwhelmed. They crushed. They were efficient predators. She could feel the faint tremor of the ship beneath her, a constant reminder of the immense power she commanded. Commander, the cost projections for this deployment are astronomical, observed Commander Evelyn Reed, her executive officer, her voice a low murmur. We could outfit 4 new exploration fleets with the resources being expended here. Our own internal economy is taking a hit. Sharma turned. Her eyes, usually sharp and analytical, softened for a moment. I know, Commander Reed. Believe me, I know. But Ambassador Vance's orders, and by extension High Command's, are clear. Lumina Prime is a priority, one defense, no expense spared, no quarter given. Reed sighed. A faint puff of air. It's just hard to justify to the bean counters back home. A single cup of water? From centuries ago? Sharma walked to the forward view screen, which now showed the distant, swirling gas clouds of the outer system, where the Vorlag would soon emerge. It's more than a cup of water, Evelyn. It's about what that cup of water represents. It's about who we are. Every human in this fleet knows why we are here. They volunteered for this. They believe in it. She remembered the briefing sessions, the quiet, almost reverent way the story of Elias Vance was told. It wasn't just a historical anecdote. It was a foundational myth. It was humanity's promise, even if it means engaging the Vorlag Empire, possibly bringing a full-scale interstellar conflict down on our heads? Reed asked, her voice laced with the weariness of command. Sharma looked at her. Especially then, Evelyn. Especially then. The very air in the bridge seemed to thicken, pressing down with the weight of the coming battle. A few days later, the Vorlag arrived. The calm, serene skies of Lumina Prime were ripped open by jagged tears of warp energy as the enemy fleet translated into real space. Their ships were brutal, functional, designed only for war. Their engines burned with a sickly green fire, casting an ominous glow on the feathery trees below. The ground shook with the deep thrum of their arrival. In the Lumins' village, panic flared. Lumins cried out, their musical voices rising in a cacophony of fear. Feather Song clung to Elder Phelan's robes, her small body trembling. They are coming. The Starspeak beings were right. Phelan held her close. He looked up, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribcage. The human ships, once silent observers, now bristled with activity. Shields flared, shimmering with a blue-white energy. Weapon ports glowed with nascent power. The air above the village crackled with the sheer energy emanating from the colossal vessels. A deep, resonant hum began to fill the sky, growing louder and louder, a sound of immense power about to be unleashed. On the bridge of the Everest, Anya Sharma barked orders. Full defensive screens. Targeting solutions on primary Vorlag dreadnoughts. Tactical. Initiate swarm defense against fighters. Maintain formation delta. The bridge was a symphony of controlled chaos. Lights flashed. Consoles chimed. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency. The air was thick with the scent of hot metal and the ozone tang of overtaxed systems. Vorlag dreadnoughts holding formation, Commander. They're preparing long-range bombardment of Lumina Prime, reported Jian Li, his voice sharp. Sharma's jaw tightened. Not on my watch. All batteries, open fire. Prioritize engine rooms. Make them regret this invasion. A searing lance of pure energy erupted from the Everest bow, followed by dozens more from the accompanying human cruisers and destroyers. The void between the fleets became a maelstrom of blinding light and explosive energy. The first Vorlag dreadnought, a hulking beast of a ship, took a direct hit to its bridge, its forward section disintegrating in a spectacular flash of light. But the Vorlag were numerous, and they were relentless. Their own green-tinged energy weapons lashed out, tearing at the human shields. The Everest rocked, its internal alarms blaring a shrill warning. Shields down to 70%, Commander, Reed reported, her face grim. We're taking heavy fire. Sharma remained focused. Maintain fire discipline. Concentrate on breaking their formation. Send in the Raptor wings. Thousands of human fighter craft, sleek and deadly, darted from the fleet, swarming the Vorlag assault ships like angry hornets. The sky above Lumina Prime became a swirling canvas of explosions, energy bursts, and the faint, distant screams of tearing metal. Back in the High Council chamber, the galactic delegates watched the live feed in stunned silence. The scale of the battle was horrifying. The casual, almost suicidal determination of the human fleet was baffling. Cathar Nar, for once, was silent, his plated face unreadable. Xylothane pulsed rapidly, its internal logic failing to comprehend the scene. Their losses will be astronomical, Ambassador Xylothane finally projected, its voice a rapid series of clicks and whistles. Their entire third fleet could be annihilated. For nothing. Jarek Vance watched the holographic display, his eyes narrowed, but his composure unshaken. The air in the chamber felt electric, charged with the energy of the distant battle. He could hear the faint, high-pitched whine of the transmission, the crackle of distant explosions. For nothing, Ambassador? Jarek's voice was barely a whisper. He had cut through the hum of the room. They are fighting for a principle, a promise. They are fighting for gratitude. He knew the cost, he knew the risk, but he also knew the human spirit. He saw the flashes of human ingenuity on the display, small human fighters performing impossible maneuvers, coordinating in ways the rigid Vorlag formations could not counter. He saw the concentrated fire of human ships, targeting weak points with surgical precision, not just brute force. On Lumina Prime, Elder Phelan watched in bewildered awe. The sky was filled with light and thunder. The explosions were so bright they hurt his eyes. He could feel the ground trembling under his feet, a constant low growl that vibrated through his very bones. Yet, through the terrifying spectacle, he saw something else. He saw the human ships, though scarred and smoking, holding their ground. They were like a wall, a living, breathing barrier of defiance against the crushing might of the Vorlag. He saw smaller human craft, like nimble birds, darting in and out, harassing the larger, more ponderous Vorlag vessels. He saw flashes of green light from the Vorlag, answered by blinding white from the humans. He realized, with a sudden, profound understanding, that this was not just a battle. This was a shield, for them, for the Lumins. He felt a tear trace a path down his feathered cheek. He had never seen such a thing, such commitment, such unasked-for protection. Anya Sharma cursed under her breath. Damage report on the Tempest. She's losing shields. The Tempest was a heavy cruiser, a venerable old ship that had seen 100 battles. Its crew was seasoned, its captain a close friend. Vorlag Dreadnought 6 is attempting a flanking maneuver. Jian Li reported, his voice strained. If they break through, they'll be able to bypass our fleet and hit Lumina Prime directly. Sharma slammed her fist on her armrest. The impact sent a jolt up her arm. The air in the bridge was getting hotter, thick with the smell of burning electronics. Not on my watch. Commander Reed, shift power to main thrusters. We're going to intercept that dreadnought. Put the Everest between it and Lumina Prime. Reed's eyes widened slightly. Commander, that's a suicide run. We'll be exposed. Sharma fixed her with a fierce gaze. We are the Everest. We are the shield. Do it, Commander. The massive ship shuddered, then slowly began to turn, its massive engines roaring with newfound power. It lumbered like a wounded titan, putting itself directly in the path of the oncoming Vorlag dreadnought. Vorlag energy blasts hammered against the Everest's remaining shields, making the entire ship groan in protest. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. Smoke began to curl from several damaged consoles. The bridge crew gripped their stations, their faces tight with fear, but their resolve unwavering. This was it. The ultimate test. As the Everest moved, a sudden surge of communication flooded the High Council chamber. It was a message from the Vorlag command, relayed through galactic channels, meant to be heard by all. A booming, guttural voice echoed through the room. Humans, you are fools. Your illogical defense of this insignificant world is costing you dearly. Retreat now, or face annihilation. Your debts is worthless. The voice was full of contempt, of absolute certainty in its superior strength and logic. Jarek Vance simply closed his eyes for a moment. He knew the Vorlag. They understood only power. They understood only conquest. They would never understand this. When he opened his eyes, he spoke, his voice calm, clear, and ringing with a quiet authority. Worthless? He looked directly at the Vorlag's projected image, even though it was only a data stream. To you, perhaps. To us, it is everything. And a human debt, once acknowledged, is paid in full, no matter the cost. Just then, a new data stream flashed across the Galactic Council's display. It was a secondary transmission, a tight beam from the Everest, bypassing the main battle feed. It was a single image, not of a ship, not of a weapon, but of a small, crude drawing etched onto a piece of ancient yellowed paper. The drawing showed a simple feathered creature holding out a cupped hand, offering something to a stick figure of a human who was clearly parched, his tongue hanging out. Below the drawing, in faded, handwritten script, were 4 simple words. They offered us water. A wave of confused murmurs swept through the council. They had seen the scale of the human effort. They had heard the human ambassador's words. But this simple, almost childish drawing, this direct link to a forgotten past, hammered home the utter alienness of human motivation. It was utterly baffling. It was utterly terrifying. The air conditioning had failed, and the air was hot and stale. The ship was groaning, vibrating from stem to stern under the sustained punishment. "Shields at 5%, John Lee yelled, his face streaked with sweat. "Hull integrity failing in section. Gamma 7, we've lost 2 more turrets." The Vorlag dreadnought was right in front of them now, a vast, ugly monstrosity, its weapons spitting green fire. Anya Sharma stood braced against her command chair, her knuckles white. She could hear the creak and groan of stressed metal, the whine of failing systems. The smell of burning insulation was strong now. This was it, the moment of truth. She looked out the forward view screen, seeing the vast hulking shape of the Vorlag ship filling their vision. Just beyond it, faint but visible, was the beautiful green-blue orb of Lumina Prime. She would not let them pass. "All remaining power to forward shields," she roared. "Brace for impact." Suddenly, a new series of energy signatures erupted on the Galactic Council's display. Not from the human fleet, not from the Vorlag. These were different, smaller, but numerous. They were darting in from the flanks of the Vorlag formation, striking with surprising precision at engine vents and weapon hardpoints. It was a swarm of human frigates and destroyers, a secondary force that had been held in reserve, using their smaller size and greater maneuverability to strike at the Vorlag's exposed underbelly. While the Everest held the dreadnought's attention, taking the full brunt of its firepower, the smaller, faster human ships inflicted critical damage. It was a classic human tactic: distract with overwhelming force, then strike from an unexpected angle. And then, something even more surprising happened. A communication, distorted but clear, came through. It was from the captain of the Tempest, the heavy cruiser that had been reported as losing shields. "Commander Sharma, this is Captain Kale. We're patched into your comms. You think we'd let you have all the fun, old friend? We're with you, right to the end." The Tempest, battered and smoking, pulled alongside the Everest, adding its remaining firepower to the desperate defense. And then another, and another. Smaller human ships, many of them badly damaged themselves, formed a ragged but determined line, putting themselves between the Vorlag dreadnought and Lumina Prime. They were a ragged collection of ships, but their combined defiance created a wall that the Vorlag had not anticipated. On Lumina Prime, Elder Phelan watched as the sky above their world continued its terrifying dance. He saw the largest human ship, the Everest, battered and bruised, but still standing. And then he saw the smaller ships, like brave companions, coming to its aid. A profound sense of wonder, mingled with deep awe, filled him. He looked at Feathersong, who was still clutching him tightly. Her trembling had subsided, replaced by a wide-eyed fascination. "Elder Phelan," she whispered, her voice a soft musical chime. They are fighting for us, so bravely. Phelan nodded, a lump forming in his throat. They are, little one. They truly are. He knew then that the debts the humans spoke of was not a burden. It was a bond, a connection forged by a simple act of kindness, magnified by centuries of human memory. Back on the Everest, the bridge was a mess. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles. The air was thick with smoke. But the alarms had lessened, replaced by a new sound, the triumphant cries of the crew. "Commander!" Jian Li shouted, his voice hoarse with exertion. "The Vorlag dreadnought is disengaging, its power core is unstable. They're retreating." Anya Sharma swayed, grabbing the armrest to steady herself. Her body ached, but a slow smile spread across her face. "They're running? From us?" Her voice was filled with a mixture of disbelief and fierce pride. "Yes, Commander, and the rest of their fleet is following. They're initiating warp jumps back to their own territory." The threat was broken. The Vorlag, faced with humanity's illogical and unyielding resistance, had broken. They had not understood the depth of the commitment, the sheer, stubborn refusal to yield when honor was at stake. They had calculated only material gain and strategic advantage. They had not calculated for gratitude. "Damage report, Reed?" Sharma ordered, her voice still a little shaky, but filled with renewed energy. Reed, wiping sweat from her brow, managed a weak smile. "We're a wreck, Commander. 80% of our hull is compromised. Shields are completely gone. We're held together by sheer stubbornness and perhaps some human-grade duct tape, Commander. But we're still flying. Lumina Prime is safe." Sharma closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep, shuddering breath. The scent of ozone and burnt wiring was still strong, but beneath it, she could almost smell the sweet, earthy scent of Lumina Prime. She opened her eyes and looked at her crew, their faces smudged with soot and exhaustion, but alight with triumph. "Well done, everyone. Well done. Let's send a full report to Ambassador Vance. And then, let's see about getting some real coffee brewing." A ripple of tired laughter went through the bridge. The battle was won. But the true impact, the deep, unsettling reverberation across the galaxy, had just begun. The aftermath in the High Council chamber was surreal. The Vorlag, a major galactic power, had been driven back, not by a superior force, but by a force driven by a principle utterly alien to most. Ambassador Cathar Nar sat slumped in his seat, his scales dull with shock. Ambassador Xylophane pulsed slowly, its light dim, as if struggling to process the implications. They held, Cathar Nar finally rasped, his voice barely audible. They did not break. Even when annihilation was certain. Jarek Vance, standing tall, looked out at the silent delegates. He could almost taste the fear in the air, the collective bewilderment. He knew what they were thinking. If humans would fight like this, with such ferocity and such disregard for their own tactical interests, for a long-forgotten, seemingly minor act of kindness, what would they do for a true ally? What would they do for an enemy? A single human soldier, a young woman named Specialist Anya Sharma, who had been part of a small human relief team sent to Lumina Prime after the battle, had been asked a similar question by a curious Xylos observer, a junior diplomat named Glarg. Glarg, a shimmering column of light, had approached her as she helped transport supplies from a human dropship to a Lumin village. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Specialist Sharma, Glarg had projected, its voice a series of rapid clicks. Your species' actions defy conventional logic. This immense expenditure of resources, this profound risk, for a gesture of simple hospitality centuries ago. Explain this debt's concept further. Anya, sweat clinging to her brow, paused from lifting a crate of water purifiers. She wiped her hands on her fatigues, leaving smudges of dirt. She could hear the distant, happy chirping of Lumin children playing. It's simple, Glarg, she said, her voice tired but firm. Captain Elias Vance was dying. He was alone. The Lumins, knowing nothing of him, asked for nothing in return. They just gave him water. When you're at your absolute lowest, and someone offers you a hand, that changes you. It changes who you are, and it changes who you become. Glarg pulsed. But centuries later, the original individuals are long deceased. Anya shrugged, picking up another crate. Doesn't matter. The kindness was shown to humanity, not just to one man. And humanity remembers. It's like, imagine you give a starving animal a piece of food. That animal won't forget. And if that animal grows strong and it sees you in trouble, it might come back and protect you. That's us. We just got strong enough to protect. Glard remained silent, its light shifting slowly. The concept was still alien, yet the simple, almost primal analogy resonated. The idea of a grateful animal growing into a formidable protector was unexpectedly unsettling. Days turned into weeks. The human fleet, though battered, remained in orbit, beginning the slow, arduous process of repair and resupply. Lumina Prime began to heal. Human engineers, with their surprisingly practical and often unconventional solutions, helped the Lumins clear debris and restore damaged infrastructure. One afternoon, a human engineer, a burly man named Jebediah Jeb Kincaid, with a grease-stained face and an ever-present wrench, was attempting to repair a Lumin wind power generator that had been damaged by an energy blast. It was a delicate piece of Lumin craftsmanship, all woven fibers and iridescent crystals. Jeb was muttering to himself, trying to decipher the alien schematics. "Well, this is elegant," he mumbled. "But not exactly built for direct energy weapons, is it?" Elder Phelan, watching him with respectful curiosity, offered a soft musical chime. "It is designed to draw the wind's song, human Jeb, not to withstand the Vorlag's thunder." Jeb grunted. "Yeah, well, we're gonna make it sing again. Might need a bit of reinforcement." He pulled out a roll of what appeared to be heavy-duty silver-gray tape. Phelan tilted his head. "What is that strange substance, human Jeb?" Jeb grinned, a smear of grease on his cheek. "This, Elder, is humanity's most versatile invention. It's called duct tape, and with a little luck and a bit of ingenuity, it can fix just about anything in the universe. Watch this." Phelan watched, fascinated, as Jeb applied the tape with surprising precision, strengthening weakened joints and even patching a small crack in one of the crystal blades. The simple, non-technological solution seemed almost magical to the Lumins, who relied on organic compounds and natural processes. The humor of it, the sheer practicality, was a small grounding moment amidst the lingering tension. Meanwhile, Ambassador Jarek Vance was on a secure comm link with the Director of United Nations Intelligence, Agent Lena Petrova. The holographic projection of her face, usually sharp and unsmiling, held a hint of something unreadable. "The galactic response has been profound, Ambassador," Petrova stated, her voice flat. "The Cathar hegemony has quietly recalled several of their forward scout fleets from disputed territories. The Xylos Confederacy has initiated preliminary discussions about a humanity-aligned economic partnership. They are terrified, Jarek." Jarek nodded slowly. The air in his temporary office, a repurposed cargo hold on the Everest, felt stale and recycled. He stared at a small framed photo on his desk, a black and white image of Captain Elias Vance, his ancestor, looking tired but resolute. Terrified, Lena? Or understanding? Petrova allowed herself a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Both. They are beginning to understand that humans operate by a different set of rules. Rules they cannot compute. Rules that make us dangerously unpredictable. And that unpredictability, coupled with our proven ferocity, is a new kind of power. Jarek leaned back in his chair. Good. Let them wonder. Let them calculate the cost of disrespecting our friends. Because that's what Lumina Prime means to us now. Not just a debt paid, but a friendship forged. He thought of the weary but proud faces of Commander Sharma and her crew. He thought of the quiet joy in Elder Phelan's eyes. The debt was indeed paid. But the impact, the legacy of that moment, would ripple through the galaxy for generations. Humanity had shown its teeth, yes, but it had also shown its heart. And that, in a cold, calculating galaxy, was the most unsettling weapon of all. Weeks passed into months. The Lumins, aided by human engineers and medics, slowly rebuilt their lives. The constant presence of the massive human ships was no longer a source of fear, but of quiet comfort. A small human outpost was established on Lumina Prime, a humble collection of prefabricated buildings nestled near the Lumins' main village. It was staffed by human scientists, artists, and diplomats, eager to learn more about the unique Lumin culture and to forge a deeper bond. One crisp morning, as the twin suns of Lumina Prime rose, casting long shadows across the landscape, Elder Phelan watched a small group of human children playing with Lumin children near the river. The human children, with their boisterous laughter, chased the Lumin children, who darted and weaved, their feathered bodies light as air. They communicated with a mix of simple hand gestures, shared sounds, and the universal language of play. The scene was a stark contrast to the terror and destruction that had almost consumed them. Phelan saw Specialist Anya Sharma approaching him. She had chosen to remain on Lumina Prime after the battle, volunteering for the long-term diplomatic and humanitarian effort. She no longer wore her battle fatigues, but a simple, practical jumpsuit. The smell of fresh earth and the sweet perfume of Lumin flora clung to her. "Elder Phelan," she said, her voice soft, "the first shipments of agricultural technology have arrived. Our botanists believe we can help you increase your crop yields without harming your native flora." Phelan looked at her, his eyes filled with warmth. "You continue to give, human Anya, more than a debt. This feels like a blossoming." Anya smiled, a genuine, easy smile that touched her eyes. "It is, Elder. It truly is. We learned from you too. Your music, your art, your gentle way of life. It's a reminder of what we're fighting to protect." She watched the children playing, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You know, Elder, when my ancestor, Captain Elias Vance, was found by that Lumin farmer, he was at his lowest point. He thought he was going to die alone, far from home. That simple act of kindness, that cup of water, it didn't just save his life. It gave him hope. It reminded him that there was still goodness in the universe." She paused, her gaze distant, looking at the children. He never forgot it. He lived a long life after that, but he always spoke of the Lumins with such reverence. He passed that story down through his family. It became a part of us, a part of what it means to be human. Far away, in the cold, vast expanse of galactic space, the High Council chamber was still buzzing, but with a different kind of energy. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a tense, wary recalculation. Ambassador Xylo Thane projected a new, complex analysis onto the main screen. It was a detailed projection of galactic power shifts, economic indicators, and strategic alliances. Every line pointed to a single, inescapable conclusion: humanity had become a dominant force. But not just because of its advanced weaponry or its tactical brilliance. Its unique, illogical commitment to a perceived moral debt had fundamentally altered the landscape. Catharnar, for the first time in his long career, felt a profound sense of unease that wasn't born of strategic defeat, but of fundamental misunderstanding. He had always believed that power was measured in fleets and resources, but humanity had shown him a new currency: loyalty. And that currency, he now realized, was far more valuable and far more dangerous than any mineral or star system. He watched a secondary feed, a human propaganda video that had gone viral across galactic networks. It was simple. It showed a time-lapse of Lumina Prime healing, of human and Lumin hands working together, of children playing, and at the end, a single powerful message, in universal translator text: humanity never forgets. Not a kindness, not a debt, not a friend. The message was clear. It was a promise and a warning. The Catharnar felt a cold dread settle in his plated gut. He now understood that humanity's kindness could be as overwhelming as its fury. And he also understood that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. From now on, when a human spoke of a debt, the galaxy would listen. And it would tremble. The hum of the council chamber, once a sound of nervous tension, now felt like a low, perpetual thrum of fear and awe. Humanity had indeed paid its debt, and in doing so, it had irrevocably altered the galactic balance, not with conquest, but with an unexpected, overwhelming act of friendship. The very air seemed to crackle with the unspoken realization of what humanity truly was: a force of nature, driven by an unpredictable, illogical, yet incredibly powerful sense of honor. The debt had been settled, but a new understanding, a new apprehension of humanity, had just begun. The vast, cold reaches of space suddenly felt a little warmer and a lot more dangerous,